Hello, Herstoryans. I'm your host, Heather Ashley, and welcome to another episode of Women of Her Story, a podcast dedicated to celebrating women who have made or are making their mark on our society. Please give a warm welcome to Foreman Bob of Bob the Builder Incorporated. Can you fix it?
No, we can't. And how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm a little disappointed now that you can't fix it.
Yeah, well...
Here we are.
C'est la vie.
So is life.
You know?
Well, Herstoryans, we have a few more weeks left of our merch campaign on Bonfire, so make sure you head over there to grab that swag. 20% of the profits will be donated to the Henry Street Settlement in New York City.
Absolutely. Go support Women, the podcast, and rock our new swag. You know what I mean? Look good in our new Her Story face mask.
Yeah.
Save lives and support
sweaters,
women. Yeah, and sweaters.
Well, sweatshirt.
Sweatshirts. But for for the fall season, gotta be fashion forward.
Exactly. Well, today's Her Story lesson was actually suggested to us by our dear friend Ellie. Thank you so much, Ellie. I had the best time researching this episode.
Yes, thank you very much for that submission. And just so the Herstoryans know, we happily accept submissions, so definitely reach out to us on Twitter, Instagram, through our webpage, email.
Give us those episode requests.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to hear someone that you, if you want to hear a story about someone and you want us to talk about them, we'll do it.
Absolutely.
That's what we're here for.
Well, let's talk music.
I like music.
Me too.
Nice.
Alberta Hunter was born in Memphis, Tennessee in 1895 into crippling poverty. Sorry to burst the bubble right at the start.
That was very fast.
You know?
Right out the gate.
Her mother worked as a maid in a brothel, and she never knew her father. Her mother remarried when Alberta was young, and she never did get along with the new setup, suffering abuse and a very, very rough early childhood. She decided that she just couldn't take it anymore. She ran away from Memphis all the way to Chicago at the age of 11.
I needed help taking public transportation to go from school to home from Queens to Queens.
Yeah.
So she is very, she's a strong, diligent girl at 11.
Well, she chose Chicago because it was a popular place that many African Americans were relocating to during the early 20th century. When she arrived, she took a job for $6 a week at a boarding house, peeling potatoes, and was provided a room. I had to remind myself when we were, just like during the Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell episode, and based on my research, $6 a week was about the average income for households. Now, here comes a shocking wealth gap. Are you ready?
No.
Mechanical engineers were making about $96 a week.
Okay.
Dentists and accountants were making about $86, and vets were making anywhere from $28 to $77. I'm curious why, like, what makes a $28 vet and what makes a $77 vet?
Who decides that? Yeah.
Also,
my goodness.
Yeah, it's just such a shocking gap. So it's just kind of crazy, and I definitely went down a weird rabbit hole of wages, but it certainly paints quite a picture. Quite a
sad
picture.
One.
Yeah. Not a very
nice
equal
picture.
opportunity waste.
Opportunity.
Opportunity picture.
Opportunity.
Alberta always looked and carried herself in a way that made her seem older than she really was. She started to dress in clothes that really sold the I'm totally old enough to be here look, to be able to get into clubs to try to get singing gigs.
Wow.
It is believed that she began unofficially performing around 1911 when she was just 16.
Goodness.
I know, super young, especially in that kind of scene, right?
16.
So she started singing at Dago Frank's soon after. Dago Frank's was rough. It was a brothel on Chicago's South Side run by notorious gangster Francesco Cirofici. Kind of a hard last name to say, but
I think the only Chicago gangster I know of is Elliot Ness, and that's from that Johnny Depp movie. It was Public Enemies with Christian Bale. The Untouchables also is more of the noticeable one.
Right. Francesco Cirofici, a.k.a. Frank Morato, a.k.a. Dago Frank, hence Dago Franks. He ultimately was sent to Sing Sing and was sentenced to death for a murder he and a handful of his stupid goons committed on July 16th, 1912. After Dago Franks closed, because obvious reasons,
Yeah.
Alberta got her big break in 1917 at the Dreamland Cafe, where she performed alongside legends such as King Oliver, Louis Armstrong, and Lil Hardin Armstrong.
It's like the Coachella of its time. That's pretty cool.
Right. Really insane.
That's a great lineup.
By the way, she was just 22.
Wow.
I know. She was billed as the sweetheart of Dreamland. She attracted large crowds of both black and white people who were continually mesmerized by her performances. She would reportedly get the audience involved with thigh slaps and finger snaps, making it a unique experience for everyone.
I like the audience interaction.
The audience participation.
Yeah, participation.
Yeah.
I feel like, what was it, Evil Dead had that too for the musical, where there would be like
call
blood.
lines and all that
yeah,
stuff. Yeah,
and you had to like cover your face or something.
Yeah.
Oh, the play that goes wrong too. That was one where they like came up to us and interacted with us.
Yeah, that was hysterical.
Interesting.
And what she would do, based on what I could find at least, was she would have some people on the like thigh slaps and some people on the snaps, and then create this whole like percussion with the audience.
I would love to be in the room where that happened.
Oh, there's that Hamilton.
I needed at least one.
Alberta began to grow weary of the violence and rough and tumble atmosphere surrounding the club scene. And when her pianist was struck by a stray bullet and murdered during a performance, she decided she'd had enough of the shenanigans.
That sounded super casual.
Too
I wonder
casual,
how
right?
much of a normal
People
thing
are
that
just
was.
like shooting
where
off guns, apparently.
Stray bullets in clubs in Chicago.
Hitting the actor,
Fourth
like
time,
hitting the performers.
the pianist. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's insane.
crazy. After 5 years playing Dreamland, she took a chance and moved to New York City. When asked about what the move meant to her career years later, she said, "If you had worked in Chicago and had been recognized there, you were somebody, baby. New York didn't count then."
Oof. Ouch.
Shots fired.
That stings a little bit. That's
You
a
know,
little bit hurtful. It's my
but,
city.
you know,
Shouts out New York City.
it just also kind of shows that she was so willing to be nobody in a place that wasn't anything to get out of that club scene in Chicago.
Yeah.
She was just, I feel like watching your pianist get murdered during a show would probably change you.
Affect me for sure, to say the least.
For a while, she traveled the Keith Albee vaudeville circuit, becoming recognizable around the States. While performing in Cincinnati, Alberta met Willard Townsend, and they were married in 1919. Their marriage was strained to say the least, and they were divorced just 4 years later in 1923. Years later, she revealed that she was a lesbian and had hid her sexuality. She believed that her career would have likely been squashed if she came out in the beginning stages of her career, and sadly, this is probably true. She had the triple whammy: black, woman, lesbian.
Oh yeah, for its time, I'm sure that it would have been such a hassle for her to try to make it in that industry.
I mean, she would have just been completely ignored.
I still think that's kind of an issue now.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
like at least the difference is now that we have this we have these ideas of identity. You know what I mean? Like before they didn't. So I mean, people were just, the discrimination was being leveled, but now it's way more apparent that people are being affected by that, and
Oh, absolutely.
Change is happening. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that she had to be the sacrificial lamb for this cause.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when she was getting settled in New York City, she quickly teamed up with pianist Fletcher Henderson and started to cut tracks with Black Swan label. Her initial records for Black Swan in May of 1921 were the first blues vocals recorded by the company.
Black Swan is such a cool name for a label.
Oh, right? And here's the best part. Black Swan Records was founded in Harlem, New York, and was the first widely distributed label to be owned, operated, and marketed to African Americans.
Shouts out to Harlem, the Heights, and every place in between. That's awesome. I love reading and learning about the Harlem Renaissance and the Chicago Renaissance. So
I think
this is cool.
you should do like a deep dive into Black Swan. I think you
might.
would love what you uncover there.
Possibly.
She
Hint.
She recorded hit tracks that were rumored to have kept the label up and running. Tracks such as He's a Darn Good Man to Have Around, How Long, Sweet Daddy, How Long, and Someday, Sweetheart.
Damn, I don't envy anyone whose job it was to name these songs. Like, I don't know if she had any say in that, but, like, that's just such a mouthful. Imagine trying to read down the marquee, like, hey, what song is she playing? Oh, don't come down the stairwell because there's a footstool in between. Like, that's such a long title in between. Like, I'm so glad people just have songs that are just like air, heart, love, passion, grief, zoom.
Yeah. Zoom.
Zoom.
These recordings ended up being pressed up for other labels, Puritan, Harmograph, and Silvertone. They were done under pseudonyms, though. Josephine Beatty, Alberta Prime, Anna Jones, and May Alex, to name a few, the last of which is actually the name of another real-life singer. Though New York was her home, Alberta traveled frequently to Chicago to perform. Paramount bought out Black Swan, and Alberta began recording with that label.
Hey, she started making some big money then. Paramount?
Mm-hmm. She showed her talent for writing when she published Downhearted Blues, which became a massive hit after Bessie Smith recorded it the next year, giving Columbia Records one of its first huge hits.
I didn't realize Columbia Records was around that long. But Can you imagine that Paramount, like we know them as the people who did, like, movies.
Right.
Like some of the biggest movies of our time.
But they were also creating the, like, official soundtrack and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well,
It's so
I wonder if they did
like,
music first and then from there they did film, or if they kind of did it cohesively, like, at the same time. I feel like they did music first, and then, like, as the advancement of filming happened, then they were getting into that business too.
Finding that they had a talent there. Mm-hmm. Interesting. I wish I had gone down that rabbit hole, but I didn't.
Next episode.
In 1922, Alberta became the first black singer to perform with an all-white band, the original Memphis Five.
Nice.
She decided to get involved in New York's African-American theater scene. And in 1926, she replaced Bessie Smith as the lead in How Come?
Oh, snap.
Leaving the usually stuffy Broadway audiences in awe of her raw and powerful voice and performances. Alberta loved the magic of live performances, and while theater and musical venue gigs were her main focus, she kept recording on the side. Recordings such as the legendary session she had with the Red Onion Jazz Babies for Jeanette Champion's New York studio with none other than Louis Armstrong and Sidney Bechet.
Oof.
This session gave us Cakewalking Babies from Home and the vocal version of Texas Motor Blues. She recorded sessions backed by Fletcher Henderson's First Orchestra, and even sessions supported by Fats Waller, one of my personal favorites, U.B. Blake, Lovey Austin, and Tommy Ladnier. Casual for a side gig, no?
I do love me some Fats, I won't even lie to you. I was just listening to him like a week ago. It's funny you mention him. Wow, so she basically had, like, that day's equivalent of, like, the Avengers helping her in terms, like, with her musical career. Just like you got the Louis Armstrong, so Iron Man with the smarts and the tech, and
you got Fat,
just everyone helping her out like that. Everyone who was in that position and had the platform was helping her, and I think that's very important to note.
Absolutely. These people had the door open for her. They were like, listen, you're incredible.
Yeah, Louis Armstrong held the door open for her, and I think that's worth noting.
In all, she recorded over 80 sides before 1930, most before 1925.
You said sides?
Sides, yes.
A sides and B sides. That's so interesting.
In 1927, tired of the rampant racism and discrimination on a day-to-day basis, Alberta left for Europe to begin a lengthy tour. She said, quote, "The Negro artists went to Europe because we were recognized and given a chance. In Europe, they had your name up in lights. People in the United States would not give us that chance." Her tour started in Paris, where she was welcomed with open arms into the bourgeoisie circle of expatriates now residing in France. She began to share her experiences abroad in the Amsterdam News, which was New York's preeminent African American newspaper. Alberta left Paris in early 1928 to star as Queenie in the London production of Showboat opposite Paul Robeson. Here's a little something to make your blood boil.
Oh, no.
So for those of you unfamiliar with this musical, you all know the song.
You know the song they sing too.
You all know the song Old Man River. Old Man River, that one, yeah.
Thank you.
And this is where that song comes from. It is a show with music by Jerome Kern and book and lyrics by everyone's favorite Oscar Hammerstein II. It is based on Edna Ferber's novel that follows the lives of performers, stagehands, and dock workers on a Mississippi riverboat called the Cotton Blossom. It addresses racial prejudices and more. The character Queenie is a black woman. However, when the original production opened on Broadway in 1927, the role of Queenie was played by a white actress, Tess Gardella, in blackface. The role of Queenie wasn't played by a black woman until our queen, Alberta Hunter, slayed the role in London.
You know, I was squinting my eyes the entire time you were reading that because I was waiting for the hat to drop.
Get it together, Broadway.
And then you said that, and I was like, damn, I'm not even, I want to be more phased, but, like, I can't even put it past people being so racist that
Just
I'm
crazy
so
to me.
I'm upset, but
the whole story surrounds this black woman and the racial prejudices that she and the rest of the people on the Cotton Blossom in Mississippi.
I want to say I'm
face.
surprised, but given how 2020 has been panning out, I'm
You're not shocked by
desensitized to it
information.
all. All this, I'm not even shocked at all. I wish I could be, and that's super sad, but, there's just so much. There's just so much
crazy.
blatant racism that, history was super bad.
Yeah,
I can't even. I want to be more upset. I'm.
Yeah, his whole body language has
I just
now
crossed
shifted.
my arms. I'm upset that I can't be more upset. But
Yeah.
I'm so bothered by the naturalization of racism in terms of acting and in Broadway that
Yeah, absolutely.
get it together, Broadway.
Yeah, I literally wrote
She
"Get
has it
together,
there,
Broadway."
but also
Get it
it
together.
together, Broadway. We're not gonna do that anymore. It's cute, but we're not gonna play that anymore.
Her run on the West End in London was extremely successful, and she remained in London for the remainder of the year. She laid an extensive series of records with an orchestra led by Jack Jackson, not to be confused with Jack Johnson.
Damn. I was gonna say, is he related?
He's not, because Jack Jackson, who names their kid Jack Jackson? But here we are.
Jackson.
But not.
That's great.
So these records were an entirely different sound and were pop records inspired by the London music scene at the time. So she's like, I'll do blues. Oh, let me do Broadway for a minute. Let's do a little pop. Let's do a little London pop.
She's trying to do it.
She's awesome.
She's trying to do it all.
The following year, she returned stateside to racists, oppression, and a serious lack of work due to the Great Depression.
Damn, if only it wasn't another year, 2020 and not another year. That's crazy.
After significant personal and financial struggles, she was, much like my speech, she was able to return to Europe and resumed recording. In 1935, she played a role in the English film Radio Parade. She was part of the final sequence that was shot in color. She caught the eye of NBC executives, and she returned to New York City for a short time for a job with NBC Radio. She settled in the States permanently in late 1938 after the State Department warned of imminent war in Europe. She had a dedicated fan base, but recording dates were hard to come by. Alberta wasn't one to be deterred, though. She joined the USO during World War II to entertain troops throughout Asia, Europe, and the South Pacific, and they absolutely loved her.
I'm glad she was able to do that,
Yeah. Her appearances always drew large crowds, and according to those who saw her live, her recordings are a pale imitation of her live performances.
Whoa, nice.
I love that.
Normally, I feel like it's the other way around, where some
Absolutely.
people just don't deliver in their live performances, and then, I guess, over-deliver.
Yeah.
Or, like, just do, like, are too
Try
extra.
too much, yeah.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah. She continued to be an entertainer with the USO during the Korean War before she came home in the mid-1950s to care for her ailing mother. After the war, she performed shows in England, toured Canada, played residences in Chicago, and then retired from active performing in 1954 at the age of 59. She says, I went as far as you could go. I played Broadway. I played the Royal Theatre in London. I played in Paris, and I figured I had gone to the top. Do you think this woman could sit still for very long?
I mean, after 4 decades of performing, I don't think the answer is going to be yes.
So, feeling like she had reached the top of her performance career, she decided, you know what? I want to go into practical nursing.
Oh.
She lied about her age, full circle, faked a high school diploma, and enrolled herself in a 3-year YWCA practical nursing training program.
Oh, man.
She was offered a job before she even finished her training and remained there for the next 20 years.
Oh.
Her nursing colleagues and her patients had no idea who she was, and Alberta liked it that way.
Hashtag women in STEM.
She was coaxed out of her musical retirement only twice during her time as a nurse, unbeknownst to her colleagues. Once in 1961 to record with Lovey Austin, and once again in 1962 to record with Jimmy Archie.
She kind of reminds me of that Duke's, is it Duke Silver? Or is it Duke from Parks and Rec?
Yeah, Duke Silver.
Duke Silver, for like no one but no one but Aubrey Plaza knows that he moonlights as a flute player.
Yeah. No, he's a
jazz.
saxophonist.
Yeah, he does jazz,
That's
right,
so
exactly.
funny, yeah.
So she just like is this like, that's so funny.
So Alberta was forced to retire in 1977 due to the mandatory retirement age of 70. If you're remembering the age that I told you she started nursing at, you might be thinking, hey, those numbers don't add up.
Yeah.
And you would be correct. The hospital thinks she's 11 years younger than she actually is because she lied about her age in the first place. 70 is the mandatory retirement age. Alberta was 81.
Oh,
While filling out a welfare request form, she said she was actively looking for work and that she'd only left nursing because she had been forced to retire. By all accounts, she was an excellent practical nurse, and she had amazing rapport with her patients. Does she stop there?
I can't believe she didn't want to.
At
The
80,
answer's no.
At
but
81, this legend
Started playing
launched
basketball.
launched her comeback career.
Oh, into singing? Okay, that's
She signed on for a 2-week gig at the Cookery, a Greenwich Village club owned by Non Busman's uncle, Barney Josephson, whose previous establishment, the Cafe Society, was the first major desegregated club in New York City.
wow.
This 2-week gig was extended, and she performed there for an additional 6 years.
Jeez.
Alberta recorded 4 albums during the final years of her life, most notably Amtrak Blues in 1978. She performed before President Jimmy Carter at the White House and went on a worldwide tour through Europe and South America and performed at the illustrious Carnegie Hall.
She didn't want to stop. No. She was, but at least she was singing and not doing something like super physically laborious that would actually like injure her.
Injure her further, like, right?
If she were
trying to like get back on Broadway or something,
career
like,
entirely.
Been, yeah.
Oh yeah, if even she was performing on Broadway. Yeah. Did you know that Patti LaBelle and Gladys Knight are going to be like having like
the Pone?
No.
Oh, Patti LaBelle?
Yeah, they're going to be having like a what's called like a verses. So they're basically going to be going like song for song in terms of their hits. And I just think like imagine having so many hits like those women
that you
and
can do
still wanting to do something like this, this is what this reminds me of.
Oh, absolutely.
This is like having so much under your belt and then being like, I could still do more. I'm just like, I can't.
Yeah, she's like, I've still got life in me. Like, I'm actively looking for work.
I would actively like to stop by the time I'm 60, so the fact that she wants to go after 80 is, she's a robot.
Well, that same year, 1978, she wrote music for the Robert Altman film Remember My Name and had a short walk-on role. Alberta recorded in 6 different decades of the 20th century and had a career that was longer than a lot of people's entire lives.
Yeah.
She was performing regularly at the Cookery, drawing large crowds until just a few short weeks before her death on October 17th, 1984, at the age of 89, at the top of her career.
Wow.
Her gritty, weathered voice was a favorite of everyone who was fortunate enough to witness it in person.
It's like a third win she had.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, so I'm going to rewind just for a hot second and talk about Amtrak Blues, because I listened to it probably 7 times through nonstop in one day while I was researching this, and I was just like, oh my god, it's incredible. Everybody go.
So you like it.
It's so good.
Okay.
Because of her lengthy career and adaptability to flowing between genres, Alberta had and still has fans of all ages. She and Sippy Wallace were 2 of the earliest African American singers to make the transition from brothels and dangerous clubs to international spotlight.
Shouts out to those women. Mm-hmm. That is very impressive.
At the NAACP Awards in 1984, Alberta Hunter was inducted into the Hall of Fame alongside Ella Fitzgerald, Marian Anderson, Gordon Parks, and Paul Robeson. Remember that name?
Yes.
They starred in Showboat together in London.
Wow.
Just for funsies, so we can all bask in the glory that was 1984. Alfre Woodard won Outstanding Actress in a Motion Picture for her work on Cross Creek, and Jennifer Beals won Outstanding Lead Actress in a Motion Picture for her work on Flashdance.
Wow. 84?
84.
I feel like that's, like, we hear
Also,
about
remember,
that
we
in
thought we
commercials.
initially started this conversation in, like, 1896.
Well, I know, and here we are, like, freaking almost 100 years later.
The
That's
Big
awesome.
Band and Jazz Hall of Fame inducted her in 1996, and in 2011, the Blues Hall of Fame followed suit.
Rightfully so.
She said, quote, "Tell them all, I'm up here keeping Memphis on the map."
Ooh, I like that. Queen.
Yeah.
Queen status right there.
So good. So,
She had such an impressive legacy. I mean,
what a life.
and I'm glad also that,
How is there not a movie about her?
I wonder if they would do it justice. You know what? Maybe they could do it now because there's way more.
People to tell it through the right
yes,
lens.
there are the better people to tell these stories right now. You know what I mean? Like Tyler Perry has his, has that place in Georgia and in Atlanta. He has a whole studio
that
there.
whole studio.
That's perfect that would be like a perfect set for them to film that there.
They would have to get like 7 different women to be her though, because
Different times in her
yeah,
life.
because she she ran away at 11. You can't leave that part out of the story.
No, that's fine. You do it like how they did is it the Tina Turner musical where you have it like different
Like
at
a
different
couple different
stages of
ones.
her life. Yeah, you know, if you make that movie 2.5 hours long, you could do each part. I already have it in mind. You could do something like 25 minutes of each part just to kind of get like a glimpse of like what, you know, the level of perseverance, but also the struggles that she dealt with and the oppression that she faced and overcame.
Right.
I think that'd be really cool to see now and kind of compare it to what's going on and
Absolutely.
if time has really changed.
Yeah. It's a really, you know, her story is just incredible. So like, again, big shout out to Ellie, because like
Shouts out.
I
Absolutely.
had the
It's a cool
best
story.
time. Do you see why I enjoyed researching
Yeah,
this?
I see
I mean,
see
there
it.
were like
No, I
moments where
understand.
my blood was, I was having conniptions,
Angry, of course. Yeah.
but you know, it's really really great.
An important story, I would think, to tell, in terms of, you know, her walk of life was different from a lot of other women that we talked about, and she also lived longer than a lot of other women we've talked about, and she also had 2 more wins than a lot of other women I talked about. I mean, again, after 60, I very much like to chill in my life. She said 80, what's good with singing again and going on Broadway?
She said 80. Well, I spent 20 years as a nurse. Let's go back.
Yeah.
Let's see what I can do.
Yeah, like my grandmother goes to the YMCA in the Lost Battalion Hall in a church, and she's like in her mid-80s. And this woman's like, let me just go sing nationally and globally. And it's like, okay, well, you've been doing this long enough. I guess I'm not going to be the one to tell you no. I'm sure there were a lot of other lame, stupid men who were like, no. But, you know, she did have a lot of other people in that industry.
She had people championing her in that industry, which was very
I wonder
amazing.
how frequent that was, you know, where you had guys like Sammy Davis and, you know, Louis Armstrong, you know, like extending that olive branch, you know. Now you kind of see it a little bit more with social media where people in similar industries can kind of big each other up and, you know, promote. But when there was no social media, it was just word of mouth. So you had to be in the clubs with those people, rolling with that circle.
You had to put that work in.
It was like you had to have enough clout and, you know, experience and capability in order for them to want to vouch for you, because they definitely also got the shit end of the stick.
Oh, absolutely.
What would you like to add? I just spoke a lot.
You're not used to that. I don't think our listeners are going to be used to that.
Me either.
You know, I feel like we got everything in there. Thank you, Historians, for tuning in again. Come back this Friday for an interview with Sarah Leaf, a dietitian, ex-ballerina, and current med school student. In this interview, she talks about getting through a career-ending injury, why she's passionate about medicine, and so much more.
Goodness, okay. All right, I'll bite. I'll tune in. Sure.
So you guys, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Tell your friends. Help us get these stories out there.
Please.
Get that Her Story merch. And if you want some extra daily inspo, follow us on the social medias. Instagram at
Women of Her Story Podcast.
Twitter at
The Her Story Pod.
Check out our website at
ofherstory.com
for even more exciting things, updates, collaborations, and all kinds of fun things. Do you have an episode suggestion like Ellie? Shoot us an email to
womenofherstorypodcast@gmail.com.
And until next week, be safe, stay healthy, and show the world what you're made of.
Bye. This is a New York Glitch production.